The Run Lift Mom podcast is brought to you by my efforts as a Zia Active independent representative and partners Hello Woofy for social media, Red H Nutrition, and Audible. Audible is the newest of this lineup, and if you want to try Audible free, all you've got to do is visit audibletrial.com/runliftmom. Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order. I have the most inspiring guest for you today in Jennifer Golden. You guys, this woman is living proof that you can turn your life around. You see, for a long time, Jennifer lived a life where every ounce of energy she went into drinking alcohol. When, where, how much? Jennifer was a self-described high-functioning alcoholic. In this interview, she'll walk us through what that looked like, what it felt like, and why she decided to quit. She's going to hit on how therapy and fitness helped her, relapse, finding love and repairing family again, and then what life looks like now as she's almost 5 years sober, and sharing her story to others who struggle, as well as sober curious folks on Instagram, where she inspires over 25,000 people. You guys, I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with this woman. Without further ado, my new friend and the very inspiring Jennifer Golden. All right, welcome, Jennifer Golden. You've told me I can call you Jen because we're pals. Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me, Susie. I'm really excited to be here and to share today.
I am really eager to share your story with the listeners. Of course, they've probably seen you on Instagram at Recovery Her Way, but we're going to talk about your sobriety story. That's where you are today, but I'd love to open up with, if you can paint the picture for us, where you were at the lowest point in this personal story.
Absolutely. So, much like every adult, I started out drinking normal, probably in high school, like late high school. And then it went through college, and I just drank, at night and on the weekends and at parties, kind of like everybody starts out doing. And then looking back, though, I never really drank normal. And when I say normal, and people in sobriety call normal people that can have a drink and stop, or have a couple of drinks at dinner and stop and not think about it anymore and not want to continue drinking or continue the party going, or they can party without it. And I have lots of friends that I consider normal drinkers. And there's a lot of people that are normal drinkers, but looking back, I really was never that. Even when I started out, it was always a binge. It was always I'm out to get drunk kind of drink. But that's kind of society, and, people don't necessarily frown on it. So that's just how I was. But The thing about alcohol is it's progressive. And as I kept drinking through the years, and I am 48 years old, so I'm getting close to 50. So I've been drinking for probably, 28 years, 26 years at that point. Alcohol is progressive, and depending on how your brain processes it in your body, you start depending on it. So when I met my husband, I met him at a bar. We were drinking. That's all we ever did. We partied, and it got to the point where I would wake up in the morning and I'd have the shakes, and I'd have to have a drink to get the shakes to go away so that I could function throughout the day. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
When you have to have alcohol to make your body feel better so that you can actually work, take care of your kid, that's a real problem. And that's what happened to me. And I never would have thought that would happen to me.
Now, would I have known, let's say I'm one of your colleagues or your neighbor or something like that. If you had the shakes, you drank to make that go away. I mean, this is pretty high functioning here. Would I have known as your neighbor as we greet each other at the mailbox to get the mail?
Not necessarily. You wouldn't have known. I was extremely high functioning. In fact, there would be times people would go, "Oh gosh, your hands are shaking." And I'd be like, "Oh gosh, I just haven't eaten today." Or, "Oh, my blood sugar's low." sometimes I remember coming back from an office lunch where I went by myself and had wine at lunch. Someone said, "Man, it smells like alcohol in here." And I was like, "Oh gosh, I wonder what that could be." You always had an excuse of what, if someone did notice something that was peculiar, maybe a little out of the norm from your behavior, there was always an excuse. There was always a lie. There was always a cover up. And that's exhausting to live like that.
Oh, I can't imagine. So talk to me. I mean, what was it that made you decide not to live like that? I mean, it does sound exhausting, and I don't want to skim over for listeners here. You were living like this for a long time.
I was living like that for at least 10 years. And then when I, even before I didn't need the alcohol to function, I would hurt so many people and hurt so many relationships by getting hammered and not remembering what I did, or disrespecting people, or disrespecting my husband. So even when it wasn't, I wasn't physically dependent, there were still a lot of issues. I mean, waking up and not knowing what you did the night before and who you hurt or what you said, and having to call your friend and be like, "Oh my gosh, what did I do last night? Like, what did I say?" And you have that pit in your stomach every day. It's bad. So I did try to quit many times. I knew I should quit. Like, I knew I had a problem. I knew I should quit. But there was a big part of my ego that said, "You're okay. You're successful. You're a mom. You can handle this on your own. You don't have a problem. You're not an alcoholic. Alcoholics are people that stand on the side of the road with the brown bag with a 24 ounce in it." And hey, I drank 24 ounces, so I can't say anything. The only difference between me and that alcoholic is I have a job and some money and a family. I mean, seriously, it was the same thing. So I tried many times.
It sounds like your self-talk, you would kind of talk yourself out of feeling like you should stop.
I absolutely did that. And there's a lot of reasons. I mean, it's very scary to think that I'm never going to have a margarita again if I go to a Mexican food restaurant, or I'm never going to be able to enjoy a glass of red wine, which I loved red wine. I'm never going to be able to enjoy that ever again. And so it's very daunting. And like I said, there's also a stigma around being an alcoholic, and the shame that comes along with that of, why am I different? Why did this happen to me? Why can't I stop drinking? Or why can't I just drink one like everybody else can? But it really is really a disease, and your brain just works different. So you kind of have to put that ego aside and actually figure out what's going to be right for your life. So I tried many times to quit. I did the whole AA thing a couple of times, maybe 3 times. And I would quit for a couple of months, and then I'd be like, "Oh, well, I did good for 2 months. I can have a drink," or, and then I would start again. And then I might start out slow, but eventually it got back to right where I was.
You mentioned alcohol was progressive as we opened up.
Yeah. So even going back out after 2 months, maybe I had a couple of glasses at first and I was like, "Oh, I am moderating this pretty well." But it never stayed. I mean, it always went back right to where it was. So when I finally started hitting my biggest rock bottom, was I had gotten a divorce from my son's father, Richard. We had gotten divorced in 2014, but we've been separated for a while. So we weren't married when I got sober. But I was kind of starting to date this guy I met on a dating app. And I was so embarrassed to tell him that I was trying to get sober, because it's really hard dating sober, because people expect you to go out and have a drink with them or to go to brunch. Yeah, I mean, it's a very socially accepted way to get to know each other, right?
Right. That's the first step thing, right? Let's meet up for a drink.
Yeah, let's meet up for a drink. Hey, you want to go to happy hour? So I told him I was on a health kick for 60 days, that I wasn't going to drink for 60 days. And that was a total lie. I was not going to try to drink ever again. And he was like, "Oh, well, that sucks for you, but okay." So we went out a few times, and he pressured me every time to drink. And at one point, I just said, "You know what? Screw this, I'm going to drink." And that started my biggest downward spiral at that point. Yeah. Okay. And then he ended up being a jerk anyway. And it was, it was totally not worth it. But, but it's just, the problem there was I wasn't honest to him. If I had been honest, he either would have said, "Oh, I don't want to date you," which would have been okay. Maybe not at the time, I wouldn't have felt that way, or he would have not pressured me to drink. But I wasn't honest about it. Right.
Right.
So all that pressure kept building up, and I just did it. And that's when I was drinking at 7 a.m, going to different stores to buy those little bottles of wine so that no one would recognize me coming in the store, or saying, oh, I'm just making a roast tonight. I need the wine for the roast. Total lies. I would go all over the city trying to get different places to get drinks. And that's when it got really bad. And that was at least for 6 to 8 months that I did that.
It's as you're making these offhanded examples, I'm reminded of earlier in the conversation when you said if anybody thought something was funny, you always have a comeback for it.
Yes. We are, the way I considered my life was a very deceptive life. Deceptive to my friends, deceptive to myself, deceptive to my family. There are so many examples I could give that at that moment I should have said, what are you doing? Stop. You just did this. But it never worked that way. And so one day, I had gotten up in the morning. My typical pattern at the end of my worst drinking cycle was go to bed, at like 10, because I was so exhausted. Every morning I would wake up at 3 a.m. and I would feel sick to my stomach. I would have the shakes. I would be sweaty. Usually I'd go in the bathroom and dry heave a little bit just to try to make myself feel better. And then my day would start. And that's how I started my day every day for like the last 5 months. And if I had alcohol in the house, I would go drink it so that I would feel better. I mean, it literally made me feel normal. It calibrated me. I can't even explain how that works. I guess your body gets used to the chemicals, but it calibrated me and I could start working and start functioning and take my kid to school. And I've driven up to my kid's school with a beer in my cup holder with a cup over it. And that's not a lie. And does that make me feel like a bad mom? When I say it, it sounds like I'm a horrible mom, but I was a great mom, Mm-hmm. So it's conflicting. But one day I woke up on August 11th and I had to drink a drink to feel better. And then I started feeling better and I was like, oh, I feel better. I could have a few more. And then at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd had a 6-pack of beer and I was working. It was a Tuesday. And something snapped in me. My brain did a turnaround. God entered my life. I can't explain exactly what happened, but I pulled over to the side of the road and I actually in a parking lot, and I started crying and I called my friend who knew what was going on. And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to kill myself. My body was failing. So that day I made the commitment to myself. I accepted the fact that I have to change, and I quit being angry about it. And I quit trying to be deceitful to myself about it. And that's when I decided to change my life, was that day.
Wow. It's not right. There are no words for you've been at this for a decade and succeeded and then relapsed and succeeded and then relapsed. And then you have that powerful moment. I'm glad that you mentioned God being a part of it, because we know there are no coincidences, that it's his providence. It's so funny. We were talking about in the green room before we started recording that when this happened to you, I was actually in 2015 on this same day I had a seizure. My husband was in Afghanistan and I was going into early labor with my triplets. So it's so wild that here we are almost 5 years later, women brought together, probably also not by coincidence. I don't want to make this about me though. This is about you and your story. So 2015, it's August. You decide enough is enough. I'm going to take control of this.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what your self-talk, we know that previously your self-talk was, you're fine, you're okay. What did that self-talk sound like now?
This self-talk was, no matter how you feel and no matter what your brain is telling you, you will not drink today. And I literally had to kind of hold myself up in my house for a couple of days because there's some physical withdrawals. I don't know if that was necessarily safe what I did, but I did, and it worked out fine. But and my self-talk was, I I did not want to go back to AA because AA just was not really the place for me. It helps millions of people, but it just wasn't the place for me. But I did learn some really good principles from AA. And one of them, and this is a good principle for anybody going through anything, is one day at a time. Instead of thinking I'm never going to have a margarita ever again in my life, it's I'm not going to have a margarita today. And sometimes it's even, I'm not going to have a margarita in the next hour, because you have to. And then you set that clock and you kind of look down and you go, oh, I made it an hour. And you celebrate these little victories that you have. And so that's kind of how that started. And my willpower kicked in, which I didn't even know I had, to be honest. I thought my willpower was shot. But my willpower kicked in, and I kept thinking of all of the ways I had screwed up my life from alcohol. And when you think about how powerful a drink can be, it's a drink, it's a beverage, it's liquid, how powerful that can really be and how it can really ruin someone's life. It's baffling. So, I did find a therapist who was based on a recommendation from a friend. We had both had a divorce in a similar situation, and she had gone to her. Now, my friend's not an alcoholic. She's one of those normal drinkers. But I went to see her therapist. And again, there's no coincidences, right? By God's grace, this woman was a recovered alcoholic of 30 years. And my friend didn't even know that, because that's not her problem. That's not her issue, right? So I worked with this woman for about 6 months, and we worked and we did homework, and we basically did some steps of AA without being in AA. And she saved my life. Like, she was amazing. And I still call her my angel, and I still see her if I need to. But between that and the other thing that saved my life was the gym. I had never really been a gym person. I'd had a membership, maybe done the cardio every once in a while just to feel like I did something good for myself. But my whole focus before was drinking, poo on exercise. So I joined my local gym about, a week later, and I started going to the gym every day. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just went, and I watched Pinterest videos and YouTube stuff on like how to lift weights. And I was determined to replace that bad habit with a good habit. And I'm going to call alcohol an addiction. Sorry, not a habit. I was definitely going to replace that addiction with a good habit. And I just went every day, and I was consistent, and that saved my life as well.
So listeners that have been here a minute know that in a previous life, I was a corporate health coach. And so I've done the clinical, work with people, that kind of thing. I want to point out, first of all, that Health Behavior 101, break down large goals into manageable pieces, and that you had to do that sometimes hour by hour, definitely day by day, as you decided to make this change. The second thing I want to point out is that you took that addiction or bad habit and you replaced it with something else. There are people listening that maybe they struggle with the same thing, and I want them to hear your personal story, and we're going to put all your links and info below so they can follow on Instagram at Recovery Her Way and just see how you've shared about your journey. There are other people maybe struggling with food addiction or some other type of addiction, and so I want them to hear you say, okay, there was a positive behavior and I replaced it with that positive behavior. So you were self-taught on exercises?
I was. Yeah. It's funny. I had no problem spending all this money on booze, but I didn't really want to spend money on a personal trainer. So I figured I could just do it on my own. It's amazing all the resources that you can really find online to learn how to exercise. And like I said, I was kind of embarrassed to go to the gym, because I felt like everybody that goes to the gym is like a meathead and a workout queen, and, they're all fit. And that is so the opposite. Everyone's going there to do something better for themselves.
Right.
And no one stared at me and said, oh my gosh, you look like an idiot doing that lat pull down, or, no one did that. Mm-hmm. In fact, I met a lot of really good people at the gym, and a lot of, actually I met several people in recovery as well.
Wow.
Fitness seems to have been a big turning point for a lot of people when they have something to kick.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That is so great. I want you to touch a little bit on, so fitness obviously entered your life and was able to replace that addiction with maybe another addiction, but a positive something that builds you up in terms of health as well as just mentally and emotionally. Talk to me a little bit about your love story as well. You have mentioned you've mentioned your relationships during this, and of course they took a toll. Can you talk to us about that part?
Yeah. So, like I said, I got divorced in 2014 I have a 12-year-old little boy, and I guess he's not little anymore. I have a teenager, and I got divorced from his father in 2014. And I had so much anger and animosity towards him, and so much, I hesitate to use the word hate because I don't really feel like I hate anybody, but in my heart, I was so angry and so mad at him. And I was so self-centered that I never realized the part I played in it. I was the hurt woman, the scorned woman. But really, there's always two sides to every story. And I didn't realize how much of a part that my drinking played. And it's not just the physical act of the drinking, it's the behavior that surrounded the drinking, the lying, the cheating, not cheating, but the lying, the stealing, alcohol from the bar and then replacing it with water. The taking the whole bottle and then buying another one later, replace it. There was all these deceitful behaviors that I didn't realize, or maybe I just didn't want to admit that a lot of this was my fault too. And I was angry for a long time. Throughout my sobriety, I was angry. And then in 2018, around December, we met up for my son's birthday party, and there was a spark again. And I found myself asking for forgiveness from him for the things that I did. And slowly and surely, we started to reconcile our relationship. And we actually went back to the same therapist that I went to for my alcoholism. And we've been working at it ever since. And we're back together. We're back together as a family. My son has his father back. It's a gift of my sobriety that I never saw coming. And there's been a lot of gifts. And it's something I never saw coming. And, we still work. It's very different dating someone that you've been married to. but we've had to do a lot of work and a lot of forgiveness. There's been a lot of forgiveness, a lot of grace, a lot of work, but it's been such a blessing. Like I still can't believe that it happened. And go ahead.
Oh no, I love it. You mentioned earlier, like, this glass of liquid. It's just a glass of liquid, but then it's not the glass of liquid. It's what that glass of liquid makes you do. Like you mentioned, the deceitfulness or lying, but then also when you give it up, it's powerful. What comes back? I mean, for you, it's your family.
Yeah, like I said, there's been a lot of blessings in sobriety. I've done a lot of things I never thought I could do. I've excelled at my job, which I always thought I was good at my job before. But, there's so many blessings that come from this. And that's just one that surprised me. And again, I dated all throughout my sobriety, and I never found anybody, and I never dated anybody seriously. And again, God had a plan for me. And that plan was to get back together with Richard and to make our family whole. And, it's still a lot of work, and we still work at it. And there are days I still think I was crazy, but all in all, it's just amazing to me. So
I love it. So you're obviously, this is still, of course, a journey that you're on, but it is so great to look back, right, over the last almost 5 years. What would you say to a woman that is listening and she's like, oh, that is cute and that's awesome, but I am too far deep. I'm too old. It's too late. I've been doing this for too long. What would you say to her?
Well, and I share this because I felt like I was alone when I started wanting to get sober. I thought no one else that's like me drinks at 7 a.m, and no one else makes a fool of themselves, and no one else is going through what I'm going through. I literally thought I was alone. And I hid the fact that I was trying to get sober for so long because I thought I was alone and people would judge me. And you're not alone. Like, I have come out, I talk about my story on Instagram, which is another kind of cathartic tool for me, is to write down some of my thoughts on Instagram. And there's so many amazing sober people, and you don't even have to have a problem to quit drinking. I mean, drinking can get in the way of a lot of goals.
Mhm.
And one of my favorite phrases is, I didn't have a problem until I did.
Mhm.
Because, maybe you are in your early 30s. I mean, I'm 48. I've been doing this for a long time, and you're definitely never too old to change your life. Ever. Because you do think, well, I'm in my 40s, I'm maybe in my 50s. What's going to change? A lot can change, and you're not alone. And there's so many resources. If you don't feel comfortable going to AA, there's online groups. There's Instagram is a great resource. I mean, there's so many great sober accounts.
You've mentioned Instagram a couple times. I just want to point out, lest anybody think you are inspiring a lot of people, like to the tune of 25,000 following your journey on Instagram. So this account, you just started opening up and sharing, and people are attracted to that vulnerability and that realness, and not the struggle, but like the strength that you have found in your struggle.
Absolutely. And that I'm still so humbled that 25,000 people want to follow my sobriety story, because I never thought it would have that much of an impact. But if I can share a quick story, because
Yeah.
I do want you to know the impact that you can have on people, because I do get messages every day from strangers saying, hey, I'm 1 year sober, I'm so excited, or I'm really struggling, what can I do? But I was going to church with my father, and we were down in the basement having like a spaghetti lunch from church. And this lady walked up to me and she goes, I follow you on Instagram. And I didn't know who she was. She knows my sister. And I was like, yeah. She goes, I just want you to know that you give me hope for my son. And I start crying, and her son is now over a year sober. This was
Oh,
several years ago, but now she emails me every once in a while and says, my son's now got his 1 year chip. Or it was so moving, and it was great for my sister heard it too. And I was real proud that she heard it, because there's some, it's good to hear that you're making the impact. And
yes.
every day you can make a change in someone's life. And I guess if I could tell any woman who's struggling or embarrassed or scared, there's hope. There's hope always. And you can do it. Like, I found a 24-hour chip the other day, and I never thought I could go 24 hours without drinking. And here I'm at like 1,750 days of not drinking. And I never thought I could do that. So there is definitely hope. And I'm here for anybody that wants to talk. Again, there's a lot of sober, curious people on Instagram who are not alcoholics, but just giving it up because they want to run a marathon, or they don't feel like it helps them reach their goals. So there's a lot of great resources out there.
So many, and we're blessed that you're one of them. I'm going to put all of your details in the show notes below. I want to do rapid fire, and it's so funny. It's taken us a half hour to get to this point, but people need to know that you're a Zaya Active rep also, and we
I
found
am.
yes, and we found one another. We're actually not on the same team or anything like that. We found one another on social media, just in kind of mastermind style, like, how do we do this business thing, this passion project? And so anyway, there are so many parallels that we've since discovered, which is such a blessing. But you're also a Zaya Active rep, so we're going to have fun with some
All
rapid
right.
fire. Are you ready, Jen?
Let's do it.
All right. Do you prefer high rise or mid rise?
High rise.
High rise. All right. Keep going with whatever comes to mind first. Blush pink or hot pink?
Hot pink.
You said that with authority,
I
and I
love
can
hot pink.
really appreciate that. New release Wednesday, exciting or overwhelming?
My favorite day ever. In fact, I've been thinking about it this morning before the podcast, since it's a Wednesday.
We are recording on a Wednesday. I'm trying to, that nervous tension, we're going to get rid of it.
Ooh, what's up?
All right, you are going to the gym. Are you wearing a copper charge tank or a Havana Unana tank?
A Havana Unana.
And how about let's talk about Zaya pillars. What is your favorite? Uplift,
Uplift. I'm sorry. I just answered it. You go ahead and tell the 4, but
well, hey, everybody, it's Uplift Life, Community, and Activity, but Uplift is an easy one to understand why you love that because, Jen, you are so uplifting to others with your story. This has been a thrill for me, and I'm really excited to share your story with our audience.
Well, I'm so grateful you had me on, and I appreciate you allowing me to share my story.
Thank you so much. Folks, you can find Jen on Instagram at Recovery Her Way. Also, depending on the player that you're in, you can either swipe up or click that hyperlink that says details. You're going to see all of her details, and I want you to connect with her to encourage her and help her encourage you. I want to thank Jennifer Golden for speaking openly about her journey from high-functioning alcoholic to a woman who feels in control of her life. You guys, this is a woman who's made her trial her testimony. And listeners, I hope you will share this episode with someone who would be blessed by it. I'm so grateful to Zaya for bringing Jennifer and I together. And even though we're on completely different teams, it's relationships like this that I cherish as part of being a brand rep. You guys, until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast. Right, I've got Katie Danger with Red H Nutrition. Now, Katie, you have long said, if I can't do a product better than anybody on the market, I am not going to do it. So to this point, you have not had a protein powder available at Red H. Tell me what changed that and about Yes Way.
Well, what changed is that I saw a need in the market for an all-natural protein, naturally sweetened, and it tasted good. So once I was able to hit those 3 points, we've gone forward with Yes Way, our all-natural protein. It's sweetened with stevia. It's no-nonsense protein support. And what I mean by that is only 2 grams of fat, only 3 grams of carbs, 31 grams of protein. But here's the kicker. We added 10 grams of digestive enzymes because we want to make sure that we get the full absorption and there's no gas and no bloat. And it also comes in 2 amazing flavors, gooey salted caramel and vanilla ice cream sundae. So it's perfect for anybody looking for the additional protein support in their diet.
Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, you know I'm the mom of 4 kids under age 5, and therefore I am always looking for ways to work smart, not hard. Anchor is the smartest way to make a podcast. Let me tell you why. First of all, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, but Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so then it can be heard on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a whole lot more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It is quite literally everything you need all in one place. And y'all, it's free. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's time for the Zaya Active item of the week, and this week I've got a sleeper item. I don't know why this isn't sold out. The Premium Tank. The Premium Tank comes in black, poppy pink, and sunshine yellow. You are going to love it for its sweat-wicking 4-way stretch fabric. It's got a vertical ribbing with a high neck. It's wonderful and does not hug your torso. For a relaxed fit, I recommend going true to size. If you want this thing for performance, and it can perform, I want you to size down one. $35. Or you can find out what the item of the week special is by signing up for my new release text at newreleasewednesday.com. Thank Thank you for listening to the Run Lift Mom podcast. This began as a passion project in February 2019, and now, you guys, it is legit my favorite thing to do each week. Record with the guests that come on Run Lift Mom, and then share their knowledge and expertise with you. I love this. I have done a lot of things right with this show. The thing that I've done wrong, I haven't asked you to rate, review, and subscribe enough. You guys, this is how other people find the show. So please do me a solid, rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you for being a listener of Run Lift Mom. Hey, Run Lift Mom listeners, if you are here for business or entrepreneur type topics, I want to let you know I have a new show. It's called Serve Then Sell, and it's available on 10 different channels, including Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. The idea here is not to just lump in the business topics with running, lifting, and momming. I want to create more of a separation. I hope you will come hang out with me over there. Again, the name of the show is called Serve Then Sell. Enter that into any search box and you're going to see it come right up. We'll be running, lifting, and momming over here. I hope you'll still hang out. Check in over there if it will be a blessing for you.